Hey y'all, welcome to our very first episode of Back to the Basics at Restored Identity. I am your host, Amy Elohim, and this is my awesome co-host,
Amy
1.2. I like to call her that. You can't beat two Amy's.
I know. I'm Amy 2 also. 1.2. I don't know.
Yeah. So today we're going to go and Amy's going to ask me a few questions. I know a lot of you have wondered, where did Restored Identity come from? How did this all come about? And that's going to get answered for you today. So take it away.
Yeah. So we all want to know like where you're from and how this all become what it became. And so we're sitting this small little tiny bumpkin town where we're both from.
Yeah. When God called me back to this town, I'm like, you're kidding me.
You're like, no way.
I never wanted to come back here. It's population like 0. There's, I think the Amish
population 0.
The Amish outnumber us. I think we have like 1,200 people in this town, and it's a small town. And you know how small towns are.
No stoplights.
No stoplights. We actually went to school together. She was 4 years older than me.
Oh, we don't need to talk age, really.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Whatever.
Older, wiser. No,
she was a baton twirler. I met her in 7th grade. I thought she was the coolest thing ever. And I was like, I'm going to grow up and be just like her. And now we're besties.
Yeah.
How about that?
Okay, so it's Montgomery, PA. I don't even know if we said that.
Yeah, Montgomery,
and no
PA.
offense, Montgomery, PA.
Yes, I love you. 17752. That's the zip code. Because people are like, oh, Montgomery County outside of Philadelphia. I'm like, nope.
No.
Go
Montgomery,
to the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. And fun fact, her store's right across the street, and it used to be the town's pharmacy.
It was. And the good Lord put in his pharmacy, FARMACY.
Yes, it's so cool to think about.
That pharmacy was there for a really long time, like 100 years or so. I don't know. It was a very long time. And then when it went out of business, like 2 or 3 years later, God was like, hey, that's what I want you to have.
So we're going to go back to when we were little kids.
Oh,
and just talk a little bit about your bringing up, like parents, brothers, sisters.
Yeah, my parents, they divorced when I was 6 months old, so all I knew was like divorced parents. So I lived with my mom from 0 to 12 or 13, and then I saw my dad every other weekend, and then when I was 13, I moved to my dad's because my mom moved to another town, and I wanted to stay in my school.
Montgomery. You're like, I can't leave this amazing school.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I never wanted to be one of those kids had to go into another school and like make new friends because I'm kind of a loner anyway.
Yeah, we were so lucky. Kindergarten through 12th was one building basically.
Yeah.
You could walk to kindergarten to 12th grade.
Yeah.
Brothers, sisters.
Oh, yes. I have an older brother, Johnny. God rest his soul, he passed away right before my 19th birthday. He was killed in a motorcycle accident. And then my brother, Mike, he's 42, I believe. And he lives here in town. He moved back here the same time I did. And then my sister, Heather, God love her.
And then when you went to live with your dad, we were talking earlier, your dad was very sick growing up.
Yeah, my dad was diagnosed with diabetes when I was born. So growing up, all I knew was like medicine, like insulin, sickness, and just him being like, oh, I can't eat that. Oh, I got to make sure. Or there would be times like he would just be like, I don't feel well. I need a piece of sugar. And like he would bottom out. And like, so that was just always, and he was always in the hospital. So I just knew a lot about health and medicine from a very young age.
Right.
I used to put his pills in his pill containers and section them out for him. And
so a lot of hospitals, a lot of medications, a lot of sickness. Or where was the very first time you got into the Bible, the Lord, and this holistic like herbal? When did that
so I got saved when I was 12. Became an avid Bible reader. And
that's pretty young for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because I think back when I was young, Mom had to force us to go to church.
Yeah. I think it's because neither of my parents forced me, and I just wanted to go. And here's the thing. I had 3 older siblings who were going down paths that were like, oh. And I've always been kind of intuitive, and I can just see oh, if I behave that way, I'm going to end up where they are. So I'm like, what is the opposite of what they're doing? I'm like, oh, church. My best friend growing up, Tracy Wise, invited me to church because I was starting to go down that path. And she was like, hey, why don't you come check out my church? And I did. And I was there any day the door was open.
I just had an aha moment.
Yeah.
I got her sister into church. Yeah.
That's wild.
I was with her when she got baptized. I took her to Creation.
Oh my gosh, I always wanted to go to Creation.
And that was the moment she found Jesus and she got baptized that day. I got goosebumps.
Everything's coming full circle.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's wild.
That is pretty crazy.
Yeah, so at 12, I just started reading the Bible, and I just started noticing things about herbs and the foods you should and shouldn't eat and things like that. So that was like my first, like, it was always kind of there in the back of my mind. Like, herbs are a thing, you know, eating good fruits and veggies. Like, that's how you stay strong and healthy.
Right.
Yeah.
And you said your dad had diabetes.
Yeah.
So, and he was fighting for that.
Yeah.
For a very long time.
For a very long time. And then that's when, in the mid-90s, when the Atkins diet became really popular,
oh, yes.
my dad learned, like, oh, I could go off my insulin if I do a low-carb diet. So for 2 years, he did a low-carb diet, and he did not have to take any insulin. And at 15, that was like, aha. Bing. Because later in life, when I got diagnosed with PCOS, it's polycystic ovarian syndrome, it's from insulin resistance. So I immediately knew when the doctor said you need to go on a low-carb diet, I knew why. I'm like, oh, ding, okay. This, yeah. So,
makes sense.
And I couldn't get pregnant. And when I went on a low-carb diet, within it was 2.5 months, I got pregnant.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we will have segments on deep dive into cleansing, diabetes. We're going to tackle all of those things piece by piece. But today is your little history and journey, how Restored happened. Yeah. Okay, so you saw your dad kind of heal himself for a moment.
Yeah.
Because like everybody else, he loved the sugar and kept going back to
and as great as the Atkins diet can be, there is a severe issue with it when you start eating massive amounts of pork and things like that are not good for your body. So it can catapult you in the total opposite direction. Like, pork's the leading cause of diabetes, cancer, heart disease, stroke, high blood pressure. So my dad was trying to do the right thing, and although it was helping his blood sugar, it was also like attacking his liver.
Something else, yeah. After that, so you were already found the Lord, you were already having these like light bulb moments, and then fast forward a little bit, you joined the service.
Yes, I joined the Marine Corps.
Yeah, hoorah.
Hoorah. And Amy was in the Navy.
Both veterans here. Bam. See, we work together.
2 peas in a pod.
Aww.
Yes. And then, I mean, Amy knows from being in the military, like, when you go through boot camp, your first week, you're walking down this line. There's a nurse on each side of you, and they're just like jabbing you. Hey, bend over, pull your pants down, boom, giving it to you.
Ouch.
And I remember being so deathly ill. And then my drill instructor was like, hey, if you don't want your period at boot camp, you should get the depot shot. Well, now we all know, like, all the lawsuits coming out about the depot shot. So, yeah, I mean, I was always sick as a child. I would have a cold like 4 times a year, always severely constipated. Like, Nana came over every Sunday to give me enemas because I just could not go poo. So by the time I was out of the military, it was just a whole slew of health issues and all of these toxins building up in my body. And yeah, it was pretty...
Some people hear that and be like, 4 colds a year, like my kid's sick every other week or something, they'll say. Or like, not go to the bathroom, like that's my norm. I just got a solid system.
No.
But that's not normal.
That's not normal. It's not normal. I mean, you know, every once in a while it's okay to catch a cold because that's your body's immune system. Like, oh, there's a different strain out. I'm going to go ahead and build up some antibodies. But to be sick consistently and you no sooner get over one and then you get sick again, like that's your immune system is like tapped out.
Right. And we'll get into all those again.
Yeah.
We'll talk a lot about poop later, digestive systems and all of that stuff. But, okay, so you were sick as a kid. Then you got a lot of jabs in the service and you got really sick in boot camp.
Yeah.
And then where does your journey go from there?
After I had my 3rd child, you're laying in your bed and it was like, he was 4 weeks early. They were like, you haven't had a tetanus shot since you were in the Marine Corps. And I wasn't there yet. You know what I mean? Like, you want to believe that these people have your best interests at heart. And so, of course, there's 1 in 1,000 that have these, like, awful side effects. And I ended up being in the hospital an extra week after having given birth to my son because my whole body locked.
Oh my
and
goodness.
just to move a centimeter just felt like every bone in my body was breaking. And I'm supposed to be breastfeeding. I was like breastfeeding my child.
Right.
And, it was just that's when a light bulb kind of went off. And I'm like, wait a second. And I just started researching, like, why are we injecting ourselves with this stuff? And, that goes down. We'll tackle that in another episode. But, yeah, that was the first, like, aha moment for me.
There's a time and place for Western medicine specifically.
Yeah.
And some people don't have that reaction. You did.
Yeah.
So bring us forward again a little bit then. And I don't even know if we touched on it, if you want to, you had problems conceiving your third child.
Yeah, I did, because of that depot shot. So my third child, it was really hard to conceive. And I remember going to a doctor. I was going to have, so I had my period for 3 straight years.
3 straight years, like no
break.
That's crazy.
And it was just a slow, steady flow. Like
before your son?
Yeah, before my son. Not enough to wear a tampon, but enough to wear a pad, and it just like constantly. And so I had been to so many specialists, one after another, and I finally went, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to one more. Wow. And I went to this OBGYN, and she goes, I know what your problem is. I'm like, what? She's like, you're insulin resistant. The lining of your uterus is so thin that the blood can't stop flowing out of it. She's like, you need to go on a low-carb diet. That'll fix your problem. I was like, that's when it rang a bell. I'm like, oh my gosh, my dad did that, insulin resistant. Okay, yeah, I'm going to do that. So I went hardcore on the Atkins diet. I stayed in phase 1 for 2.5 months. Boom, pregnant.
Wow.
Yep.
That's amazing.
So that was another like, okay.
Yeah.
There's other ways around, like when a doctor tells you, oh, you have this. It doesn't have to be like, life and death are in the power of the tongue. Like whatever, don't let people speak things over you, like there's always a way out, especially if you listen to what the Lord has to say.
Yeah, a lot of times I think we're just so searching for an answer, and we don't know who to believe. There's so much out there, and then you got different doctors telling you different things. So for you to be able to navigate that, figure it out, have those light bulb moments.
And then, of course, after I got pregnant with him, I was just like Oreos and ice cream, like going ham and just eating whatever I wanted. And, I tapped out that was my first son, but Gavin, he was 4 weeks early also. I still had 4 weeks to go, and I was 199 pounds.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, my doctor at my last appointment before I had him, she was like, you really need to slow down. I was like, shut up, Carol.
Right.
I'm like, I'm pregnant. I'm going to eat what I want.
Right. That was me, too. Yeah. Well, we don't need to talk about that. But
thankfully, my weight fell off really quick. But I think that attributed to breastfeeding and things like that. Of course, when I was done, I was okay with like jumping back on the eating healthy train and whatever. I've always been on some sort of like diet or eating routine that was, good for my body. But it was after him and getting that tetanus shot that really woke me up to, okay, and at this point I'd already had a degree in psychology. Okay. I had done some herbal schooling, and I was just at this point where I was trying to like mesh the two, like how do they fit together? Yeah. And by the age of 34, I was on a slew of medications. Being in the Marine Corps is really hard, especially for a female's body. Like we should not be humping is hiking. We should not be hiking 10 miles.
Other things too, but
we're
talking about
military lingo. We shouldn't be hiking 10 miles with 50-pound packs on our bodies and doing all of this rigorous stuff. So my body broke down really quickly, which I now know was attributed to all of the jabs that they gave us because it was just eating away the bones in my body.
Yeah. So you're 34. At some point, you try to go to nursing school too.
Yeah, there were several times that because I was taking care of my dad all these years. I took care of my dad for almost 17 years. The last 5 were really rough because he had a massive stroke. He was half paralyzed, the left side of his body. But, changing his diapers, doing his medicines every day, and just learning and just living in hospitals. Like when he had his stroke, he was in there for 3 months in the hospital and then another 3 months in a nursing home. And I was there 1 to 3 times a day with actually he was 3 months old and a 1.5-year-old.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm just like, my parents were my life. And after seeing my dad, and near the end of his life, he was taking 32 pills a day. And it's like, at what point
Yeah.
is he supposed to get better?
Right.
Like he's doing everything that
Where's
you're
the out
saying.
here?
Yeah, I'm doing everything the doctors are saying, and I was never getting better, and neither did he.
Well, nursing school never happened because life was happening and just didn't allow you to do it.
Yeah, 3 times I tried to go to nursing school, and every time something major would happen that would pull me out. And I now look back and I know, like, that was the Lord protecting me. He's like, I don't want you in that side of medicine.
Right. So you also went through, so you're now 34, sick, you had multiple knee surgeries, you're being diagnosed with how many different things? Like what are you going through at this point?
Man, yeah. So by the age of 24, I had 5 knee surgeries. By the age of 34, I had celiac, PCOS, IBS, Hashimoto's, hypothyroid, all sorts of digestive issues, severe compressed spine, 14 ruptured discs in my spine.
Gosh.
Yeah, like I was just a hot mess. I was walking with a cane because my body, like my joints were freezing, and I had so much inflammation that it was just painful to like stand up or sit or walk.
And you're so young.
I know. That's why.
And you're still young.
I know.
You're sick, you're ill, and then what happens? You get a phone call.
I get a phone call from a friend. She first sent me a video. She's like, watch this. And then she called me and she was like, we can heal ourselves. And I was like, shut up. So
tell me more.
Tell me more.
What are you talking about?
And at this point, you know, like all of this stuff that I'm remembering from scriptures, like racing back into my mind, and it sends me on this rabbit hole chase where I'm just like, oh my gosh. I'm watching video after video of people who have cured their body of herpes, of hypothyroid, Hashimoto's, like all of these things. I'm like, okay, if they can do it and they're older than me, I can most certainly do this.
Right. What did you do? Did you start ordering herbs or like making herbs or picking, like what did you do?
Yeah, so at this time I was in school learning about herbalism, so I'm like, you know, in my backyard, like picking stuff off trees, making tinctures and extracts.
Oh my God.
And grinding things up and putting them into capsules, and I just was trying everything. You know, you're doing the apple cider vinegar, the borax baths, the magnesium baths, the magnesium spray. I'm just like trying everything that I'm finding in these videos. And so I just start doing it on myself. Little by little, I just start feeling better and my body starts responding really well. And by 3 months, I was like, I woke up one day and was like, oh my gosh.
I can move.
I can move and I don't feel depressed and miserable.
Wow.
And it gave me enough oomph to be like, let's go another 3 months and see what happens.
Yeah.
So I went 3 more months, and at 6 months, I was like, whoa, watch out.
I'm on to something.
Yeah, the cane was gone, didn't need that. I just had more energy. I felt vibrant. But my only downside was, had I cleansed properly and had I known, it was my whole process that led me to all of the kits that we have today at our company, was because there is a very methodical way that we should go about cleansing our bodies and making sure that we restore them correctly. So by the time I got to 11 months, I had passed parasites in my stool every day for 11 months straight.
My word.
Yeah. And when I got to 11 months and no more came out, I didn't even know the person from a year ago.
From when you started the journey.
I was like, who was that girl?
Wow.
Because I was just so full of life again.
Yeah.
And my whole body was just restored. And when you combine that with scripture and you're just learning about who you are and who God says you are, I restored my identity.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is an unbelievable story.
And that's how Restored Identity came about. And Restored Identity actually started out as a ministry like 10 years ago, actually 14 years ago. I traveled to churches and I shared my testimony with women, and a pastor had told me like, well, who's backing you? Who's representing you? And I'm like, God?
Right, yeah.
And he's like, I don't think so. You don't have our support to do this. So I was like, okay, whatever. I just put it up on a shelf.
He shut that down.
Yeah, he shut it down. I just was like, okay, I'll just put that up on a shelf. And so for the next 14 years, God just was teaching me all of these things. Yeah. And so when it came time, I remember telling who I was with at the time, like, I'm going to start an herbal supplement company, and I'm going to change the world.
Yeah, I'm going to heal people.
I'll never forget. He looked at me. He's like, "That's a stupid idea."
Wow.
And I was like, okay, well, I'm doing it anyway. And the first thing I launched was my parasite kit. And when I was like, oh, what should I name this company? God brought it right back to my mind. He's like, Restored Identity.
Wow.
That's what you'll name it. And I was like, oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So from the time you shelved it to now, to when you opened your store, it was 14 years to, like that time
it's 14
frame?
years now.
14
it was
times.
10 years.
Because I was going to say, that's my favorite number, so another weird coincidence.
Mine's 7, 11, and 3. 3, 7, 11. Yeah, it was 10 years.
Okay.
In between. And now we're 4 years as a company, and it all... And this all came about, too, because, you know, I got on TikTok. My daughter came to me one day, and she was like, Mom, you need to get on TikTok. She's like, you need to tell everybody everything you know. And I was like, absolutely not. No way.
Why? Did you think people wouldn't listen? Or
yeah, I was just like, no one has ever listened to anything I've ever had to say.
Well, they're listening now.
Yeah. And I realize now it was just, you know, God was growing me and teaching me. And
yeah, you were figuring it out.
I was figuring it out. And then so the very first TikTok I ever made went viral. And I was like, well, that was easy. I can't believe people want to hear what I have to say. Little by little, like, I don't even know how. I was doing some, like, Bible stuff that I was teaching, but I was also doing some herbalism and health things. And I remember one day someone had asked about an antidote to the jabberwocky. And I was like, oh, yeah, white pine. It's got cerumen in it. And Dr. Tenpenny talks about this. So I'm, like, walking out to a tree, and I pull it off, and a bunch of people in the comments were like, will you bag that up and send it to us? I'll pay you.
The actual white pine off the tree.
Yeah, the white pine off a tree. And I was like, come again? I'm like,
you're going to pay me to mail them.
Yeah, so I started a whole, like, white pine shipping business.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and I, like, picked the whole mountain. It was like there was no white pine left. And that was just like, I'm like, okay, there's people who are hungry for truth.
There's something for this.
Yeah, there's something for this. And that's when I was just like, okay, I'm creating this herbal supplement company. I'm going to take everything that I have learned. And I was like, and creating a space where, like, you can buy a parasite kit from somebody or a parasite product, but they're not telling you all of the information that you need to know.
Right.
So the Lord was like, I want you to create a booklet that comes with these kits to explain step by step how people should do this so it's done correctly.
Yes.
And that's kind of always just been like what we're known for. We don't just sell you something, we give you all of the information for free on how to do it. It's a 36-page booklet that comes with all of our kits, and it explains the ins and outs of
And you were the trial. You were the test dummy.
Yeah, I was the test dummy. And then as I started creating supplements, I was hitting up friends and family. I'm like, hey, I need you to try this. Hey, I need you to try this. Yeah. And then they would start taking it, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is working. I haven't had hot flashes in forever. Or I just have more energy. I'm feeling, oh my gosh, look at these pictures of my parasites. And I'm like, oh.
I know. I'm so passionate about it too. I'm in the cleansing process too. But and people are like, you're going crazy over this. I'm like, you don't understand how good I feel. Right. And I'm not taking anything toxic. I'm taking an herb.
Yeah.
Like a little tiny, like clean herbal vitamin.
Right.
And I do want to mention just really quick, because we're going to wrap this up soon, but how does I think it's fascinating how yours products a little bit different than anything else you see out there, and why? Like how you make them, what's in them, what's not in them is more important.
Right. So when I started it, the Lord was like, here's what we're never going to do. We're never going to put fillers, synthetics, or anything in your supplements. It's just going to be herbs, vitamins, and minerals. Like, that's all I want you to put in it. And you're never going to sell yourself out and get these big machines that do it for you. You're going to hand press every single one of them. So that's what we did. That's why our capsules are stronger. That's because they're literally hand pressed and compacted in there.
Little pill.
Each little pill is hand pressed.
I said, you're crazy. You're growing. You're online. You want to get into all these other, you want to go to Mexico. You're already in Canada. Like, how are you going to still hand press these pills? And she's like, I'm not getting those machines.
Yeah.
They don't put the same amount of product in each pill. And then she's got to change her labeling. And then you got to take 3 pills versus 1.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah. I'm just not going to compromise quality for money. It's just not worth it to me.
Right. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, and we will get into more and more of your testimony throughout this, because it's a lot to handle in one.
Yeah. My testimony is going to be broken down in like 10 segments. Yeah. It's pretty deep. It's pretty dark, some parts of it. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, we will see you on the next episode where we talk about the ins and outs of cleansing and the top 5 issues that people have when it comes to the cleansing process. Yeah. So we'll see y'all later.
See you later.